My own mother locked me out after 22 years. When I came home, I found my keys didn't work. My clothes were thrown on the lawn like trash. She looked me dead in the eye and said, "You have no home here anymore." The woman who gave birth to me had just made me homeless. But what she didn't know was that I had a plan. A plan that would make her regret every single decision she ever made. Little did she know, I was about to legally take half of everything she owned, and there was nothing she could do to stop me. My name is Kara, and I'm 22 years old. Up until 3 months ago, I thought I knew my mother. But I was so wrong. And let me tell you, this story is going to blow your mind. Because what happened between us isn't just some typical mother-daughter drama. This is betrayal, manipulation, and ultimate revenge. And I'm here to tell you exactly how I went from being homeless and broken to legally owning half the house my mother tried to steal from me. Here's the thing. My dad passed away when I was 15. It was just me and my mom for 7 years. And I thought we were close. Like I thought we had each other's backs. But clearly I was living in a fantasy world. Because the moment I made a decision she didn't agree with, she showed me who she really was. It all started when I told her I was staying with my boyfriend Marcus. And look, Marcus is amazing. He's got a good job. He's respectful. He treats me like a queen. But my mother hated him from day one. And I never understood why, until later. She demanded that I break up with him. And when I said no, she completely lost it. I'll never forget that night. I came home from work around 7 p.m. My key wouldn't turn in the lock. I stood there confused, trying the door again and again, thinking maybe it's just stuck or something. Then I saw it. All my stuff piled on the front lawn. My clothes, my books, my laptop. Everything just thrown out like garbage. I stood there frozen, trying to process what was happening. And then the door opened, and there she was. My mother, standing in the doorway with her arms crossed, a cold look on her face I had never seen before. She looked right at me and said, "You made your choice, now live with it. This is my house, and you're not welcome here anymore." I just stood there in shock. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of nightmare. But it was real. She had changed the locks while I was at work, and kicked me out without a single warning. I tried to reason with her. I really did. I said, "Mom, what are you doing? This is insane. We can talk about this." But she just shook her head and said, "There's nothing to talk about. You chose that boy over your family. So now you can go live with him." Then she slammed the door in my face. And I heard the lock click. That sound, that click, echoed in my head for weeks. So there I was, standing on the lawn of the house I grew up in. The house where I took my first steps. Where I celebrated every birthday. Where my dad used to read me bedtime stories. And now I was homeless. Just like that. 22 years old. And my own mother had thrown me out. Like I meant nothing. The first week was the hardest. I'm not going to lie. I slept in my car for 3 nights. Because I was too embarrassed to tell anyone what happened. I mean, how do you even explain that your own mother made you homeless? I'd wake up with my neck cramped, and my back aching. I'd see people walking their dogs in the morning. And I'd duck down in my seat. Because I didn't want anyone to see me living in my Toyota Corolla. Marcus eventually found out. He noticed I kept showing up at his place earlier and earlier. And when he asked what was going on, I just broke down and told him everything. He was furious, not at me, but at her. He immediately told me I could stay with him. But his apartment was a tiny studio. And I felt like such a burden, even though he kept saying I wasn't. My mother blocked my number, blocked me on social media, and told everyone in the family that I had moved out. Because I was being disrespectful and ungrateful. Suddenly the same family members who used to love me started calling me selfish and spoiled. I was getting texts from my aunt saying, "How dare you treat your mother like this after everything she's done for you?" I tried explaining my side, but no one wanted to hear it. Because my mother got to them first. I cried myself to sleep every night for 2 weeks. I felt so alone. So betrayed. So worthless. Like if my own mother didn't want me, then maybe I really was the problem. There were moments where I thought about just giving up, apologizing, even though I did nothing wrong, just to have my home back. But Marcus would remind me, what she did was abuse. And I deserved better. I had to drop one of my college classes, because I couldn't focus anymore. I was working full-time at a coffee shop, trying to save money for my own place, but rent in our city is insane, and on my salary, it would take forever. Every day I'd drive past my childhood home and see my mother's car in the driveway, and I'd feel this rage building inside me. Like, how could she do this? How could she just erase me from her life so easily? Everything changed on a random Tuesday afternoon. I was visiting my grandmother, my dad's mom. We were going through some old photo albums. She was telling me stories about my dad. Then she got this sad look on her face and said, "Your father would be so upset if he knew what your mother did to you." I was like, "What do you mean, Grandma?" She said, "Well, you know, he made sure you'd always have a home. He put your name on the house deed before he died." I just froze. I was like, "What are you talking about?" She looked confused and said, "The house, half of it, is legally yours. Your father insisted on it in his will. Didn't your mother tell you?" My heart started racing. I said, "No, Grandma. She never told me anything about that." My grandmother's face went pale. She said, "Oh no, that woman." She got up and went to her bedroom and came back with a manila folder. Inside were copies of documents, my dad's will, the house deed, and right there, in black and white, it said that the property was to be split 50 between my mother and me. Upon my father's death, I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I owned half the house, and my mother had hidden this from me for 7 years. 7 years she let me believe the house was entirely hers, that she had all the power. And all this time, I had just as much legal right to that property as she did, and she kicked me out of my own house. I felt everything all at once: rage, vindication, heartbreak, excitement. I looked at my grandmother and asked, "Can I make copies of these?" She said, "Keep them, sweetheart. Your father left them with me just in case. And I think he knew somehow that your mother might try something." I hugged her so tight. And I remember thinking, "Dad, you're still protecting me even now." That night I couldn't sleep, but for a different reason this time. I was researching property rights, inheritance laws, tenant rights, everything I could find. The more I read, the more I realized I had a case. A strong one. My mother had seriously messed up by locking me out without any legal eviction process. The next morning, I started calling lawyers, and I'm not going to lie, most of them wanted retainers I couldn't afford. $3,000, $5,000 just to start. I was getting discouraged. But then I found a legal aid organization. They help young people with family disputes. I met with a lawyer named Sarah Mitchell. Sarah was probably in her 40s. Short blonde hair, smart glasses. When I showed her the documents, her eyes lit up. She said, "Kara, this is ironclad. You own half this house. And your mother illegally evicted you." I asked, "So what can we do?" She smiled and said, "We can do a lot." She explained we could file for partition of property, which basically means forcing the sale of the house and splitting the proceeds. But I didn't want that. I wanted to live there. I wanted my mother to face what she did. So Sarah said, "Okay, then we'll file for possession. You have every right to live in that house. And if your mother tries to stop you, she'll be the one breaking the law." We spent weeks preparing the case, gathering evidence. Sarah had me document everything. Texts from family members, screenshots of my mother blocking me, pictures of my stuff on the lawn, statements from Marcus and his family about me staying with them, bank statements showing I had nowhere else to go. We built an airtight case. My best friend Jade was with me through all of it. She'd come to meetings with Sarah, bring me coffee when I was stressed. She kept saying, "Kara, you're going to win this. Your mom messed with the wrong person." Honestly, Jade's support kept me going. There were moments where I doubted myself, where I thought maybe I should just let it go. But then I'd remember that click of the lock, the coldness in my mother's eyes, and I knew I had to see this through. The day we served my mother with the legal papers was honestly one of the most satisfying moments of my life. Sarah arranged for a process server to deliver them. I wish I could have seen her face when she opened that envelope and realized what was happening. She called me within an hour. Her number showed up as no caller ID, because I had blocked her. I almost didn't answer, but something made me pick up. She was screaming into the phone, "How dare you take me to court? I'm your mother. I gave birth to you. I raised you. And you're going to sue me. You ungrateful little brat." For the first time in my life, I didn't back down. I didn't cry. I didn't apologize. I just said very calmly, "You kicked me out of my own house, Mom. The house Dad left to me. You lied to me for 7 years. So yes, I'm taking you to court. I hung up and blocked that number too. And it felt powerful. She tried everything after that. Family members started calling me, telling me I was tearing the family apart. My uncle called and said, "Kara, your mother is devastated. How could you do this to her?" I said, "She changed the locks on me and threw my stuff on the lawn. She did this to herself." He went quiet because he didn't know what to say. My mother even showed up at the coffee shop where I worked, caused a scene, crying, saying I was killing her, that she couldn't believe her own daughter would betray her like this. My manager had to ask her to leave. I was so embarrassed, but also so angry, because she was playing the victim, when she was the one who started all of this. The court date was set for 6 weeks out. In that time, my mother hired her own lawyer, some expensive guy in a fancy suit. They tried to argue that the will was invalid, that my dad wasn't in his right mind when he made it, which was disgusting, because my dad was perfectly healthy mentally. He just knew he was sick physically and wanted to protect me. Sarah destroyed their arguments in the preliminary hearing. She had medical records showing my dad was completely competent. She had the original will, signed and witnessed by 2 lawyers. She had everything. The judge looked annoyed at my mother's lawyer for wasting the court's time with baseless claims. The actual trial was surreal. Walking into that courtroom and seeing my mother sitting there with her lawyer, she wouldn't even look at me, just stared straight ahead. I sat down with Sarah, and I felt this weird calm wash over me, because I knew I had the truth on my side. Sarah presented our case methodically. She showed the will, the deed, the documents, proving I was a legal owner of the property. Then she showed evidence of the illegal eviction, the texts, the photos, everything. The judge was taking notes, looking more and more serious. Then it was my turn to testify. I had to talk about that night, about coming home to find my locks changed, about my mother slamming the door in my face. I started crying, not because I was sad, but because I was finally being heard. Finally, someone with authority was listening to what happened to me. My mother's lawyer tried to make me look bad. He said, "Didn't you disrespect your mother by dating someone she disapproved of?" I said no. I made an adult decision about my own relationship, and that's not grounds for making someone homeless. Even the judge nodded at that. When my mother had to testify, she tried to play the victim again, saying she was scared for my safety, that Marcus was a bad influence, that she was just trying to protect me. But Sarah cross-examined her brilliantly. She said, "So you thought your daughter was in danger. So instead of talking to her, you made her homeless, where she'd be even less safe." My mother stammered. She didn't have an answer. Sarah continued, "And isn't it true, Mrs. Anderson, that you never told Kara she owned half the house?" My mother said, "I didn't think she needed to know." Sarah said, "You didn't think she needed to know she owned her own home, the home her father left her?" The judge actually interrupted and said, "Answer the question, please." My mother finally admitted, "No, I didn't tell her." The judge took a 15-minute recess. When he came back, his face was stern. He said, "I've reviewed all the evidence, and it's clear to me that Miss Kara Anderson is the legal owner of 50% of the property in question, and that she was illegally evicted from said property. Therefore, I'm ordering that Miss Anderson be given immediate access to the home, and that both parties work out a cohabitation agreement, or one party may buy out the other's share." My mother's face went white. She clearly thought she'd win, that the judge would side with her, because she's the mother. But the law doesn't care about that. The law cares about what's right, and what's legal. The next day, I showed up at the house, with a locksmith, a police officer for protection, because Sarah advised it, and my legal documents granting me access. When my mother opened the door and saw us, her face was priceless. She tried to block the doorway, saying, "You can't just come in here." But the officer said, "Ma'am, she has a court order. She has every right to be here." My mother had no choice but to step aside. The locksmith changed the locks and made 2 sets of keys. One for me, one for her. I walked through my childhood home for the first time in months. It felt different. It didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a battlefield. But it was my battlefield now. I went straight to my old bedroom and found that my mother had turned it into a home gym. There was a treadmill where my bed used to be, exercise equipment everywhere. I just stood there thinking, wow. She really tried to erase me. But Sarah had already prepared for this. The court order specified that I was entitled to equal living space, so we called another locksmith. I moved into the master bedroom, my parents' old room. My mother absolutely lost it. She was screaming, "That's my room, you can't take my room." I said, "Actually, Mom, we both own this house equally. So we both get equal space. You can have my old room." I watched her face turn red with rage. But there was nothing she could do. Over the next week, I moved all my stuff back in. Marcus helped me. So did Jade. My grandmother came by and cried happy tears. Seeing me back home, my mother stayed in her new room the whole time. Didn't say a word to me. Just slammed doors and blasted music. But I didn't care. I had one. Living with my mother after that was exactly as awkward and tense as you'd imagine. We created a schedule for shared spaces, like the kitchen and living room. I'd use the kitchen from 6 to 8 a.m. and 5 to 7 p.m. She'd use it other times. We'd leave notes on the fridge about groceries and bills. We never spoke directly unless absolutely necessary. If we passed each other in the hallway, we'd just look away and keep walking. Honestly, it was sad in a way. Because this was the woman who used to braid my hair and read me stories. And now we were strangers living under the same roof. But I wasn't going to feel guilty. She created this situation, not me. Every time I started to doubt myself, I'd remember that night, standing on the lawn, with my whole life in trash bags. My mother tried apologizing exactly once. About a month after I moved back in, she knocked on my bedroom door. When I opened it, she looked smaller somehow, defeated. She said, "Kara, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done what I did. Can we please just go back to normal?" I looked at her and said, "Mom, you didn't just kick me out. You lied to me for 7 years, about Dad's will. You tried to steal my inheritance. You turned the family against me. You made me homeless. And then you fought me in court. So no, we can't go back to normal." I closed the door. I heard her crying in the hallway. Part of me felt bad, but the bigger part of me knew I was doing the right thing. Some things can't be forgiven with just a simple sorry. Some betrayals cut too deep. Word spread through the family about what really happened, about the will and the illegal eviction. Suddenly, those relatives who called me selfish started calling to apologize. My aunt sent me this long text, saying she was so sorry for judging me, that she had no idea what really happened. My uncle called and said, "Kara, I'm proud of you for standing up for yourself. Your dad would be proud too." And that made me cry, because I missed my dad so much. I wished he was there to see me fight for what he wanted me to have. My mother's friends started distancing themselves from her too, because in our community, word travels fast. When people heard that she'd hidden her daughter's inheritance and illegally evicted her, they saw her differently. She went from being the poor, widowed mother, to the manipulative woman who tried to cheat her own kid. She started spending more time away from the house, staying with her sister or at work late. Honestly, it made things easier for me. I could breathe when she wasn't around. I could exist without feeling that tension. I threw myself into making my half of the house feel like mine. I repainted the master bedroom a beautiful sage green. I hung up photos of me and my dad. Photos with Marcus and Jade. I got new bedding, new curtains. Made it a sanctuary. Every night when I climbed into that bed, I felt grateful. Marcus and I got even stronger through all this. He saw me at my lowest and loved me anyway. He'd come over, and we'd cook dinner in my kitchen. It felt domestic, sweet, and real. Sometimes my mother would walk past and glare, but we'd just ignore her. I also went back to school full-time. I had saved money from not paying rent anywhere. I could focus again. My grades improved. I made new friends. I started living instead of just surviving. Looking back now, 3 months after that court date, I'm not the same person I was before this happened. I'm stronger, more confident, less willing to accept mistreatment from anyone. I know my worth now. I know that I deserve respect, love, and a home. My relationship with my mother will probably never be what it was, and I've made peace with that. You can't unring a bell. You can't unknow what you know about someone. I know now that she was willing to make me homeless, to maintain control over me. But here's the thing. She lost that control completely. By trying to take everything, she lost half of it. She lost her daughter, and she lost her reputation. That's the consequence of her own actions. I still live in that house, and so does she. We coexist. We share space, but we're not family anymore. Not really. We're just two people who happen to own property together. Maybe that sounds sad, but it's also freeing, because I don't owe her anything anymore. The house itself feels different now. It's not filled with happy memories anymore. Those are kind of tainted, but I'm creating new memories. Memories of me standing up for myself, of me fighting back, of me winning. My grandmother comes to visit me often now. She brings cookies and tells me stories about my dad. She always says, "He's watching over you, sweetheart, and he's so proud." I believe her, because somehow, I found those documents at exactly the right time. Jade jokes that I should write a book about this or make a documentary. Honestly, maybe I will, because I think there are probably other people out there who've been kicked out by their parents, who've been lied to, who've been made to feel worthless. I want them to know, you can fight back, you can win. You don't have to accept abuse, even from family. If there's one thing I want people to take away from my story, it's this. Family doesn't get a free pass to treat you badly. Blood relation doesn't give someone the right to control you, manipulate you, or take away your home and your safety. My mother thought she had all the power. She thought she could just decide one day that I didn't belong anymore, that she could erase me from the house my father and I both loved. But she was wrong, because the law doesn't care about who gave birth to who. The law cares about what's right and what's legal. And I had the law on my side. I had my father's foresight protecting me, even from beyond the grave, and I had my own determination, my own refusal to be a victim. There were so many moments where I could have given up, where I could have just apologized even though I did nothing wrong, just to make things easier. But I didn't, because I knew I deserved better. And that belief in my own worth, that's what carried me through. Now, when I walk through that house, I hold my head high. I don't skulk around or try to avoid my mother. I exist boldly, unapologetically, because it's my home, just as much as it is hers. And she has to live with that every single day. She has to see me thriving, see me happy, see me living my best life, in the house she tried to steal from me. And that is the best revenge of all. Not just winning in court, but winning at life, showing her that her cruelty didn't break me. It made me stronger. As I'm recording this, it's been almost 4 months since I moved back into the house. Things have settled into a weird kind of routine. My mother and I still barely speak. We have our schedules, we stay out of each other's way, and life goes on. She's dating someone new apparently. Some guy she met at work, and honestly, good for her. Maybe he'll make her happy in a way that I apparently never could. Maybe eventually she'll want to sell the house, and we'll have to deal with that. But for now, this is where I am. I'm still with Marcus. We're talking about getting engaged soon. And when we do, I think I'll move out. Maybe we'll get our own place. And I can rent out my half of this house. Or maybe I'll buy my mother out if I can save enough. Whatever happens, I'll do it on my terms, not hers. I'm graduating college next year, with a degree in business management. I want to start my own coffee shop eventually, and none of that would have happened if I'd just rolled over and accepted being homeless. I fought for my future, and I won. My relationship with extended family has mostly healed. Those who matter understood once they knew the truth. And those who still side with my mother, well, they've shown me who they really are, and I don't need them in my life. I still think about my dad a lot, especially when I'm in the house. I talk to him sometimes, like, "Dad, thank you for protecting me. Thank you for making sure I'd always have a home." And I swear, sometimes I feel him there, like his presence is still watching over me. And my mother, sometimes I catch her looking at me with this expression I can't quite read, regret maybe, or resentment. Or maybe just sadness, because she lost her daughter over her need for control. And I wonder if she thinks it was worth it. But that's not my problem anymore. I've done my healing. I've done my fighting. And I've come out the other side, stronger, wiser, and more sure of who I am. So if you're watching this, and you're going through something similar, if someone in your family is trying to control you, or manipulate you, or take something that's rightfully yours, I want you to know this. You have power. You have rights. And you can fight back. It won't be easy. I'm not going to lie to you. The legal process is stressful. It's expensive. It's emotionally draining. And living in that house with my mother, after everything that happened, was one of the hardest things I've ever done. But it was worth it. Because I stood up for myself. Don't let anyone make you feel homeless. Not physically. Not emotionally. Not mentally. You deserve to take up space. You deserve respect. You deserve peace. And if someone tries to take that away, even if they're family, you have every right to fight back. My mother thought she could just erase me from her life, and from the house my father left me. But she learned the hard way. I'm not someone who disappears. I'm not someone who accepts injustice quietly. I'm someone who stands up, who fights, who wins. And that house she tried to steal from me, I'm living in it right now. As I tell you this story, I'm sitting in the master bedroom, in my comfortable bed, with my photos on the walls, my things in the closets, and she has to walk past my room every single day, and remember that she lost. That's the power of standing up for yourself. That's the power of knowing your worth. That's the power of refusing to be a victim. And honestly, I hope she thinks about it every single day. I hope she regrets what she did, because her need for control cost her everything. At the end of the day, she didn't just lose half the house. She lost her daughter. She lost her reputation. She lost her family's respect. And she lost her peace of mind. And I'm living my best life, in spite of her. Or maybe because of her. Because she pushed me to become stronger than I ever thought I could be. So thank you, Mom. In a weird, twisted way. Thank you for showing me what I'm capable of. Thank you for pushing me to fight for myself. Thank you for teaching me that I don't need your approval or your love to survive, because I have my own strength. And that's enough. And to everyone watching, if someone is trying to take your home, your safety, your peace, document everything. Know your rights. Talk to a lawyer. Talk to someone who can help. And don't give up, because you deserve better. And you can win. I'm living proof of that. My mother changed the locks and thought she'd won. But little did she know, she'd just started a war she couldn't win. And now I'm living in my house. The house my father left me. And she's the one who has to deal with the consequences. Every single day. If you've made it this far in my story, thank you for listening. Thank you for being here. If this resonated with you, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell me if you've ever had to fight back against family. Because I want to hear it. I want to know I'm not alone in this. Hit that like button if you think I did the right thing. Subscribe for more stories like this. Because trust me, I've got more to tell. Share this video with anyone who needs to hear that they can stand up for themselves too. This is my story. This is my truth. This is how I went from being homeless and heartbroken to living in my own house, on my own terms. And it's the best revenge I could have ever asked for. Remember what she said to me. You have no home here anymore. But she was wrong. Because I always had a home. Now she just has to share it with me. Whether she likes it or not. And every single day that I wake up in that master bedroom, I remember that I won. That justice exists. And that standing up for yourself is always, always worth it. Thanks for watching. And remember, don't let anyone take your home. Not ever.